The young Iranian nuclear scientist who was buried this weekend knew he was a target for assassination. He had a bodyguard. But they both were killed as they drove to work by a motorcyclist who came alongside and clamped a magnetic bomb to their car.
This recent killing has got to be a blow to the Iranian government. The bodyguard didn't do his job, and the Iranian government didn't do their job to protect these scientists. And so I'm sure there's a lot of hand-wringing inside Tehran now about how they're going to protect these people.
Former weapons inspector David Albright keeps tabs on Iran's nuclear scientists.
So what difference do you think it makes now that he is no longer part of the Iranian nuclear program?
Well, I think he's, I hate to say it so crudely, but he's replaceable.
Is there any Iranian involved in their nuclear program who is irreplaceable?
Not as far as anyone can tell.
Except for possibly Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, a mysterious figure who is believed to head their nuclear weapons program, but has never been seen in public.
Certainly, intelligence agencies that are interested in assassination would have a high interest in killing him.
The CIA would no doubt like to see him dead, but is barred by an executive order from conducting assassinations like the one last week.
Let me state what the Secretary of State made clear.
Defense Secretary Panetta used to run the CIA.
We were not involved in any way, with regards to the assassination that took place there. I'm not sure who was involved. We have some ideas as to who might be involved, but we don't know exactly who was involved. But I can tell you one thing: the United States was not involved in that kind of effort. That's not what the United States does.
You don't have to be a former CIA director to have the idea that Israel, which views Iran's nuclear program as a threat to its very existence, was involved in that and other assassinations of Iranian scientists.
How many people would you estimate are involved in Iran's nuclear program?
Well, there's thousands involved. I mean, I would estimate hundreds of professional people at sort of the top level.
So in the past 2 years, 3 have been killed. What kind of impact is that?
It doesn't have a much direct impact, I would say.
It certainly has not stopped Iran from enriching uranium to higher levels of purity by running it through these centrifuges. But according to Dennis Ross, who until recently was the Obama administration's point man on Iran, the enrichment program is way behind schedule.
By their own measure, they should have been at 50,000 centrifuges now, and they're operating, and they're at about 8,000 installed. So that's dramatically short of where they would have been.
That's due in part to something called Stuxnet, a computer virus that someone, perhaps the U.S., perhaps Israel, infiltrated into the control systems that run the centrifuges, causing them to spin out of control and self-destruct.
I think the Stuxnet attack, I would estimate, set them back about a year.
But now Iran says it's opened a new uranium enrichment plant dug deep into a mountain that will allow it to step up production.
By the end of this year, they are going to have about 250 kilos of this 20% enriched uranium, which is a matter of concern for the international community.
Oli Heinonen, who used to inspect Iran's centrifuges for the International Atomic Energy Agency, says 20% enriched uranium is only one step away from bomb-grade material.
Once you have 25 kilos of this material, in 1 month's time you can produce uranium enough for a nuclear bomb.
Before that happens, the U.S. and its European allies intend to levy harsh sanctions on Iran that would put its central bank out of business.
It's a big problem for Iran because basically the central bank handles all the payments for their oil. So it is obviously a way to affect Iran's ability to sell their oil.
On top of that, Europe is expected to ban imports of Iranian oil.
About 18% of their oil exports go to Europe. So you're talking about a fifth of the revenues they're generating from their oil come out of Europe.
Iran's response has been to stage war games and threaten to close the Strait of Hormuz, through which 15 million barrels of Mideast oil pass each day.
For the Iranians to act on that threat, they do themselves more harm than anybody else.
Closing the strait would cripple Iran's own oil exports and alienate virtually every nation which depends on Mideast oil or cares about the price of oil.
This wouldn't just be the United States that would have a concern about keeping it open. It would be the international community, and it would be some of their most important trading partners, like China, for example.
Actually, the U.S. would be more than just concerned if Iran tried to close the strait.
We cannot tolerate Iran blocking the Straits of Hormuz. And that's a red line.
And Panetta says there's another red line.
We cannot allow them to develop a nuclear weapon. That's a red line.
If it comes to that, the B-2 stealth bomber has been outfitted with a 30,000-pound bunker-busting bomb designed to destroy Iran's underground nuclear facilities.
We sat down in
an interview with Scott Pelley for 60 Minutes, Panetta warned Iran could cross the nuclear red line as early as this year.
So are you saying that Iran could have a nuclear weapon in 2012?
It would be, sometime around a year that they would be able to do it.
When the Secretary of Defense said a year, that's the worst case. I don't believe, I've not seen others say that they think that they could have it within a couple of months.
Yeah, so that's the worst case. What's the more likely case?
Yes. The more likely case would probably be several years.
Several years?
Yes.
That sounds like time enough for sanctions to decimate Iran's economy and make the Ayatollahs think twice about how badly they want the bomb. There's one problem.
The Israelis look at what time they have available still to them to use a military option if it was necessary.
Israel's defense minister has warned Iran will soon have dispersed its nuclear facilities and hidden them underground to the point that a military strike could no longer stop the program.
He has publicly given interviews where he talks about 6 to 9 months from now.
The red lines are fast approaching. Assassination, sabotage, and sanctions might delay them, but they will not be erased unless and until Iran gives up its nuclear ambitions.